Welcome to another edition of Oshkosh Area Politics. My name is Ben Schneider. I'll be your host again for this evening. This evening we're actually going to be interviewing Paul Esslinger, candidate for Assembly District 54. Paul, thanks for being on the program.
Well, thanks for inviting me, Ben. I came prepared with 16 reams of paper and all kinds of good stuff, and I thought I was coming to a debate. But across from me there's an empty chair with Gordon's name on it. Can you explain to me what...
I'll get there. Well, just for our viewers' benefit, obviously I'm your treasurer of your campaign, and I'm a host of this program. And it was very important for this program to offer as a community service a debate between you and Representative Gordon Hintz. And I thought, well, who better to, so because obviously I support you, I thought it'd be important to have a co-moderator for a debate. Therefore, I asked Tony Palmieri, professor of communications at UW Oshkosh, past council member, and frankly, he's kind of more of a Green Party type of ideology. I asked him to moderate the debate, and he agreed. So I asked him to reach out to Gordon Hintz, and he did. And Gordon was a little reluctant because, in all fairness to Gordon, he thought he wouldn't get a fair shake. So after some back and forth, I told Tony, I'll give Gordon a call. And I called Gordon. He was very polite, very pleasant. And I said, Gordon, what's it going to take to get you on the program? And he said, well, he didn't want to walk into a gotcha session, and completely understand. I said, I tell you what, I will not be a moderator. I will not even be in the building during the taping of this debate. Tony Palmieri will have sole discretion of all the questions. And also the other concern Gordon had was he didn't want anything to go up on the screen as he was talking aside from what he approved. And I said, absolutely understand. We will make that happen. So I said, I tell you what, I'll put that in writing in an email. And that's basically, it was my handshake, my commitment to him. Well, and that was a good week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks, plus or minus. But it was a little while ago. So this weekend, I believe it was on late Saturday, we received an email from Gordon saying he wanted to get all these demands in writing. And the producer of the show basically said, we're not going to put this in writing. Our word is our bond, is our contract, and let's just move on. Well, it deteriorated from there, and Gordon said, well, I want to get this in writing. So I actually took to Facebook and I asked Gordon, I said, why don't you send me a copy of the contract and I'll see what I can do. And he never furnished the contract. Because I frankly was going to try to see if we can all just get a debate. We had the studio scheduled. So this evening I wasn't even scheduled to be here. And this program, obviously it's going to be a one-sided debate because the other side chose not to participate. So obviously our viewers are going to see Paul Esslinger talk about why he should run. And we're going to have factual depiction of Gordon's record on the screen. But again, we would not have had that had he been here. It would have been a debate with Tony Palmieri sitting right here, you sitting there, and Gordon sitting at the empty chair. So it deteriorated for a variety of reasons, but he asked for this contract to be signed, and it's just kind of perplexing to me.
Wasn't there, I believe, that Gordon had contacted an attorney? The attorney was supposed to write up this contract? I mean, I'm not making this stuff up. This is how silly this is. Politics have gotten so ridiculous and stupid that now when someone comes on for a debate, they need to contact their attorney and have a draft written up for everyone to sign. I wonder if Gordon is going to be supplying that to the League of Women Voters debate or any other debates that he has. And he's got these demands, I guess. I don't know if they're just for us or if the demands are for someone else.
Well, speaking of demands, we actually created a short video with this top 10 demand list. So to provide some little levity to the situation, we'd ask our viewers to tune into the screen and watch the top 10 demands from Representative Hintz. Stay with us. provide a little levity to the situation, but legitimately, Dr. Tony Palmieri would have been the moderator. There would have been nothing up on the screen. We would have had a complete agreement, maintain a professional atmosphere, and had a fair debate because, we will abide by the standard regardless if we agree or disagree with the candidates. So Paul, enough on that. Why are you running for the 54th Assembly District?
Well, it's a half-hour show. We've taken up 5 or 7 minutes already. We could take the rest of the night on this question alone, but just a few things, Ben. I've done politics now for 11 years when I was on the council, but I'm really upset and I'm disappointed with our leaders, and that's at the local level, the state level, and at the national level. I want to make a difference. I know that sounds quaint, and you hear people say that all the time, but I mean, truly, I do want to make a difference. We have politicians like Gordon Hintz who claim they want to create jobs. He had the ability to vote in favor of that for the mining bill up in northern Wisconsin, create billions of dollars worth of infrastructure, of monetary funds for the state of Wisconsin. He voted no to do that. So I mean, he talks one game and he does another. And the climate obviously is terrible, as evidenced by some of Gordon's activities. So I'd like to go down to Madison and interject my opinions and my beliefs on what I think the citizens of the city of Oshkosh, the 54th Assembly District, want in this district and for the state of Wisconsin, and do that in a civil manner. I want my kids to be to grow up in the state of Wisconsin, city of Oshkosh, to be debt-free. I know that's a daunting task now, as I think everyone now has about $54,000 worth of debt piled up on them because of irresponsible politicians. So, I mean, those are kind of the major issues of why I'm running. But again, like I said, I could sit here the rest of the night and come up with other reasons.
Yeah, well, that's obviously an important thing. Unemployment rates at a very high level. And obviously, in a real debate, we'd listen to your opponent and have your opponent have a chance to respond and rebut, but obviously he chose not to be here. So in terms of priorities, you talked about jobs. You obviously talked about you favored the mining bill, but yet the opposition says it would have shredded the environment up in northern Wisconsin. It would have left a negative environmental footprint. What do you say to the opponents of the mine? Because obviously it wasn't a slam dunk. There were people, in fact, the reason why it didn't go through is because I believe one Republican on the Senate chose not to vote for it. So acknowledge the concerns of those that oppose that.
Well, I get asked this question in the questionnaires that I get running for this position about the mining bill. And they ask, under what conditions would you vote in favor of it? And, it's a very complex issue. And the first thing I say is I would not vote in favor of a mining bill if I thought that the environment to the state of Wisconsin or the area that the mine is in, if I felt that there was going to be a detrimental now or in the future, I wouldn't vote for it. But if you looked at the bill and the talk that was around that bill, they had to go by EPA standards, all kinds of environmental standards. And this was just an application before they could even move on. So clearly, Ben, I think that you had, again, a bunch of politicians who talk out of one side of their mouth, and then on the other side of the mouth, they're just hypocritical. They talk about wanting to create jobs, and they won't give you any other ways of how they're going to create jobs. Governor Walker says he wanted to create 250,000 jobs. I think that's a lofty goal, and I don't know if that can be met. I want to help, whether it be Governor Walker or anyone else that was governor, I want to help meet that goal. And I'm going to try my hardest to do that. And just by saying, well, it's going to hurt the environment, how is it going to hurt the environment? Can you outlay how exactly it's going to hurt the environment? And you have to compare and contrast that with I can't remember how many, 1,500 or 2,500 good paying jobs, like up to $80,000. The initial influx of money was over $1 billion. And then, of course, you have the domino effect. For every job you create for that, you have subcontractors that are going to need to hire more people. So if you want to talk about creating jobs, let's talk about creating jobs. don't hide behind some kind of environmental nonsense that your party, and this is all a party thing, we did have the one Republican vote against it, unfortunately, but the Republicans are beholden to the PACs, and maybe we can talk about the PACs a little bit later. They get money from the political action committees, and some of those political action committees are environmental.
So do you think Gordon Hintz is anti-jobs?
No, I wouldn't say that he's anti-jobs necessarily. I would just say that I think that his threshold for creating jobs might be a little different than mine. I think I'm a little more realistic than he is when it comes to creating jobs. And, if there's some kind of insect that's going to be bothered, where we could create
Like the mosquito?
Like a mosquito or something like that, with all due respect to the mosquito, I'm going to disappoint the mosquito, and I'm going to create billions of dollars worth of financial influx into the state of Wisconsin.
So it kind of help the tourists at the same time, and help the
Yeah, imagine that.
help the.
Yeah.
So obviously there's been a lot of important issues the last couple of years. The other one was perhaps Act 10, which was a budget repair bill that Scott Walker rolled out in early 2011 to deal with a projected $3.6 billion deficit. I know where you stand on this, but refresh our viewers' memory. Where do you stand on Act 10, and why? And outline your opponent's position.
Well, I do, but my opponent was opposed to Act 10. In fact, he went crazy on the assembly floor. I think he was on Jay Leno, was making fun of him, turned around and shouted profanities and threatened the life of Michelle Litchens after that vote. So clearly he's against Act 10. I'm for it. You had served in an elected position for several years, so had I. And you knew as well as I do, and many people know the financial difficulties that we're in. One of the reasons that I want to run, I want to get rid of these financial difficulties. And I just jotted down some notes, Ben, if I could, just to explain where we were and, before Act 10 and after Act 10.
Who was?
Where the state of Wisconsin was
okay.
in local municipalities.
Okay.
Previously, we had about a $5 million deficit for the school district, as you know. And in the budget cuts that were coming to the city of Oshkosh, here are some of the things that had to be cut because of these budget cuts. Layoffs to special ed teachers, support staff, cutting class offerings, cutting math recovery services, math tutors, cutting literacy coaches, speech and language, math. It goes on and on and on, okay? And those cuts totaled, I have math here, about $5.5 million. Okay, that's Governor Doyle and Gordon Hintz authored all of this stuff because we had the unsustainable union contracts and benefits that we had to continually pay more and more and more for. After Act 10, Governor Walker, as you know, as you were leaving the school board, we now have a $3.5 million surplus. So we went from a $5 million deficit to a $3.5 million surplus, and no cuts. No cuts in the last budget. So clearly, and that's just the school district, and going on with the city and the county, we have people that I think are great employees, as we've talked about many, many times before, that we just had to say no to increases in salary and benefits. And the result of that is, and before that, we had 9% tax increases from the school district. We don't have, taxes were actually cut last year. So clearly, Ben, I mean, it's a night and day situation. It's a tale of two approaches, if you will.
Yeah, well, actually, we'll talk about that a little more after this break. But I'd just like to our viewers just to stay tuned, and we're going to take a short break, and we'll see you on the end of the break after the break. Stay tuned.
Look at yourself in the mirror, and how about a little respect, at least to your colleagues?
That was Wisconsin State Assemblyman Gordon Hintz.
Look at yourself in the mirror, and how about a little respect, at least to your colleagues?
That was Wisconsin State Assemblyman Gordon Hintz.
Thanks for staying with us. Paul, you talked about the tale of two approaches, and yes, I was actually in 2009 the board president, and I actually presided over some meetings where we had hundreds of members of the community packing the Alberta Kimball Auditorium at Oshkosh West High School, disenfranchised with the proposed cuts. And actually, I remember in the conclusion of the winter, the spring of 2009, when it was announced that when we had to do all these cuts, we subsequently voted for roughly over $5 million of cuts, about June of 2009, to deal with the massive reduction in state aid. And I do know that Gordon did support, he supported that approach. I mean, and really what happened was the school board, they cut $5 million of services, and parents should really take note of this approach. Cut $5 million of services to students, to taxpayers, and the school board raised taxes 9%. And I'm not faulting the Doyle administration for some of the deficit, because there was just a national negative wave of bad economics that just created a revenue shortfall. But I fault is the way in which that was dealt with. Fast forward to 2011, still in the school board, we had another historic reduction in state aid. However, Act 10 came along, which gave the local school board control over how to deal with that. And as a result of that, we turned a $1.5 million projected deficit with no budget cuts to kids' programs into a $3.5 million surplus, which incidentally the school board didn't restore a lot of these cuts that happened the last several years, which is interesting.
Right.
But more importantly, there was a 2% tax reduction. So it truly is a tale of two approaches, as you stated. And really, you have approach one, $5 million in cuts, 9% tax increase. The other approach would be, which you advocated for, Act 10, allow the local the control to make these tough choices, have employees pay more of their fair share, and there was a 2% reduction in the tax rate. So yeah, that's
It's a huge difference.
it's a huge difference, and I think that's that's going to be an important part of this election. And do people want to continue to see more of the same, or do they want to see a new approach?
Right.
At the break, we saw a little highlight of Gordon's behavior and some of his past run-ins, I guess, with I don't want to say the law, but he's been perhaps morally challenged on several occasions in the last couple of years. How do you feel about that, and do you think that's fitting for an elected official?
Right.
Look at yourself in the mirror, and how about a little respect, at least to your colleagues?
That was Wisconsin State Assemblyman Gordon Hintz.
Look at yourself in the mirror, and how about a little respect, at least to your colleagues?
Thanks, Gordon. Well, I think my thoughts on that are they're two separate issues. Number one was the incident up in Appleton at the massage parlor. That's bad behavior. I'm not going to justify that or defend that. I consider that kind of an off the clock thing. He wasn't on the assembly or anything like that. It's bad behavior, and he shouldn't have done that, and I think he knows that. The behavior that you just saw there, and the behavior with Michelle Litchens threatening her life, that's 10 times worse, in my opinion, than the activities up in Appleton, because that is on the assembly floor. And Michelle Litchens. I don't think any bad words ever came out of Michelle Litchens' mouth. She's a very dear woman. I don't think I've ever heard her speak bad about anyone. And for someone, an assembly person, to show that type of behavior on the assembly floor, I think is just is completely out of bounds.
Yeah, and we did have Michelle on the program, and one thing that was really surprising that she outlined was she led apparently before every legislative session, an assembly person leads a prayer, and that was her turn to lead the prayer. And because the Reverend Jackson was in the audience, the Democrats wanted him to lead the prayer. And when she started to recite the prayer, the Democrats, according to Michelle Litchens, booed her, and she did stipulate that Gordon participated in that disrespectful behavior. So
well, and also, Ben, the other thing that you and others need to consider is because of that behavior that Gordon had participated in, the state had to bring in extra security, extra police enforcement individuals to get the Republicans out of the assembly because their lives were being threatened. And that's all precipitated by Mr. Hintz, Assemblyman Hintz, and the others in that building at that time. And that's just behavior that's unbecoming, I think, of an assemblyman.
Yeah, and I want to be really clear for our viewers here. This is why I thought it was really important to have a debate between the two candidates for the 54th. And that's why I was willing to relinquish my moderator host duties of this program and allow a neutral third party to discuss these issues. And because, you know, frankly, having a program like this when the individual can't speak is not the ideal situation. But, you know, unlike other competing local programs, we actually will reach out to both parties and have a debate.
Right.
And I know
everyone gets invited, in other words.
Yeah, everybody gets invited, and we don't just say they're invited. I mean, we have documentation, but, you know, this contract demand and fill this out was obviously a deal killer. So we had to cancel the moderator, Tony Palmieri, and we do have a debate scheduled for the candidates for the Senate District 18, and there will be nothing on the screen that the candidates don't authorize, and it'll be a fair debate. You know, trust me on that. But
can I just take 30 more seconds? Okay. One other thing I just wanted to mention with that is we were talking about Professor Palmieri. He was going to moderate this. Dr. Palmieri, I've known for several years, so have you, and many people that watch the show have. I agreed, Gordon agreed, you agreed that he should do it because all of us hold Dr. Palmieri in a very high regard. And Dr. Palmieri would never get himself into a situation if he thought it was going to be unfair to me or if he thought it was going to be unfair to Gordon. So, you know, Dr. Palmieri was disappointed that it didn't go on also.
Right, and he will be helping with the next program. And ironically, I mean, I told him, and Tony can attest this, I told him, you ask the questions, you're in charge. So again, to our viewers, we reached out to both parties, and one party chose to participate, and the other chose not to. So, but yeah, I mean, just back to this behavior. In 11 years on your council, I know you've taken some heat from the local paper for being Dr. No, for being obstructionist. But have you ever shouted at anybody, threatened someone's life from the council dais? I mean, you know, people. I know people like to, if they don't like you, they just like to say things, and that's why it's so important when we make our points in this program. We actually put a slide up on the screen. We source it. We like to use footage because the footage speaks for itself. So, you know, how have you got along with your colleagues the last many years, and have you ever engaged in shouting matches and shame sessions from the council chambers?
Well, I think if you talk to the colleagues that I've served with over the years, I think they would tell you that I had probably gotten them very, very angry at times. But I hope they would also say to you that I never treated them with any disrespect. I disagreed with their views, and I stated my views, and that's one of the things I think that gets me in trouble is I'm very forthright. You know, I tell it the way it is. I'm not a politician. I'm just someone that wants to represent people, and I tell it the way it is. So no, I never shout at anyone. In fact, you know, when you serve in this capacity, as again, Ben, as you know, you have to treat your constituents. You know, they could be shouting at you or whatever they're doing. You must treat them with as much respect as you can possibly get. I mean, your blood pressure can get up, and you can disagree with them, but you just have to say, well, you know what? Here's my view, and here's the way I look at it. I can appreciate and I can respect your opinion. You know, this is the way I look at it. So you have to conduct yourself in a good manner.
So yeah, we got about a minute and a half left. So
what?
Just
I had all kinds of stuff here. Come on.
so I mean, is there anything you want to roll through? And I just want to cap off.
Yeah, there's just one thing, Ben, and you know, just bring a little levity back in here. This is the scene. I'm on number 3 here. This is the scene. Gordon and I were asked to supply some answers to some questions, and we did that. I wanted to talk about that, but we're almost out of time. I don't know if anyone can get this person right here. Here's me, by the way, and I want to thank the artist. My daughter was very upset with this, but I thought it was flattering because the artist gave me more hair than I actually have. But here above me, this is Ben Schneider, and Ben, this is you. It looks like you have some emotional issues that you're trying to Maybe you looked in the mirror and you saw that you were gray and you were a little upset. So do you want to take a second or two to comment on your looks there? Or?
I actually can't even confirm that if that's even me.
No, that's you, and then Steve Dito was next to you. So
You know,
maybe
I-
Steve's getting you.
I
worked
think
up.
it's just a humorous. It's just
It is, yeah. It's fun.
and you know they're just trying to do a community service.
I
So-
think it's a great. Cover.
So, well, on that note, Paul, we got to wrap this up. I want to
Okay.
thank our viewers for joining us once again this evening. You know, get involved in the election process. The election is November 6th. On that note, I'd like to thank you once again for joining us. Good night, and God bless.